Love, it's a huge topic, right? We use that word every day. But have you ever really stopped to think about what it actually is? Well, that's what we're diving into today. We're going to explore what our source material calls the problem of love. And believe me, it's a journey that takes us from our most basic instincts all the way up to our highest ideals.
You know, the author of our source material kicks this off with a really beautiful thought. It frames love not as some static thing you just find, but as something that's constantly changing and evolving right along with us as we go through life.
So, what are we really talking about here? Is love just a feeling that comes and goes? Is it just our biology doing its thing? Or is there something much deeper, something way more profound going on? That's the big question we're trying to get to the bottom of. All right, so here's our roadmap for this exploration. We're breaking it down into 5 parts. We're going to start with that raw, fundamental hunger for love, then we'll get into all the messy complications. After that, we'll see what happens when you throw group dynamics into the mix. Then we'll talk about how love has to mature through wisdom and forgiveness. And finally, we'll get to love's ultimate challenge, transcending hatred. Okay, let's jump right in. The very first stage is what our source calls the hunger for love. You can think of it as our most primitive, instinctual starting point, something we're all basically born with. And it unfolds in a really fascinating way. It all starts with this simple, powerful desire to be loved. But then it evolves. We start to want to monopolize that love, right? To be someone's special one, their only one. And that urge, weirdly enough, becomes this incredible engine for self-improvement. It's what drives us to be better, to be worthy of that affection. And this is a really key point. This isn't some passive need. It's an active engine for growth. Especially when we're young, it's the thing that motivates us to study a little harder, practice a little longer, and just strive to be the best we can possibly be.
Okay, so that all sounds pretty great, right? This positive force pushing us forward. But of course, life's never that simple. This simple hunger for love doesn't exist in a bubble. It eventually collides with the messy reality of other people, which brings us to the complications.
Yeah, this is where things start to get tricky. It's that point where your personal need for love and attention starts to rub up against the needs and priorities of everyone else around you. All of a sudden, there's competition. We start hiding our flaws and only showing our best side. You see it between parents and kids when love gets tested by a little bit of rebellion. The source gives some perfect real-world examples from marriage. A husband's super important business golf game clashes with his wife's religious meeting. A mom's trip conflicts with her son's final exams. These are those everyday, real-world collisions of love. And this leads us to what I think is a brilliant insight here. Love isn't some prize you win at the end. It's a life problem set. It's like this incredibly challenging assignment that every single one of us gets, and we have to figure out how to solve it. And what's really wild is how this whole problem scales up. It's not just about individuals or families. You see the exact same dynamics play out in big organizations. Just think about it. A movement usually starts with this pure, passionate vision, a kind of love for a cause. But as it gets bigger and bigger, that original passion starts clashing with the cold, hard realities of trying to manage a large group of people. You can see the tension right here. The initial pure intention is all about passion, freedom, and direct action. But as the organization grows, you need rules, you need structure, you need, well, bureaucracy. And what began as this simple, beautiful act of love now requires administration, which can feel like a total betrayal of the original spirit. And in these complex systems, human nature starts to creep in. Ego, jealousy, they start to emerge. You can imagine the early members who sacrificed everything, feeling pushed aside by new experts. That simple, unifying love just gets all tangled up in the complexities of being human. So if that simple, pure love isn't enough to handle all this complexity, what's the answer? Well, our source argues that love itself has to evolve. It has to mature. This brings us to a really pivotal concept, forgiving love. This is not just passive affection. This is love combined with wisdom and judgment. It's the ability to see someone's mistake, a failure at work, a friend's thoughtless comment, and to separate the person's essence from their flawed action. You address the mistake without condemning the person. And that insight is so powerful. I mean, think about it. It's pretty rare for a stranger to say, "I love you," but it's almost unheard of to hear someone say, "I forgive you," especially in a work setting. This is the higher, much more challenging path of love. And that brings us to the final stage, where love faces its ultimate test. This is where it confronts its direct opposites. Now, we often think of hatred as love's biggest enemy, and in a lot of ways it is. But our source points to an even deeper, more insidious foe, jealousy. See, hatred is often an external enemy you can see, but jealousy, that's an internal poison. It's that awful feeling of resentment that comes from comparison, and honestly, it's the seed from which so much hatred actually grows. The speaker in our source shares this really powerful personal story. He realized his own jealousy was just poisoning his life, making him unhappy and resentful. So he made a conscious choice. Instead of envying people who were more skilled, he would actively admire them. And he says that one simple mental shift completely transformed his life and his relationships, allowing him to befriend and learn from the very people he used to resent. And that just reveals such a profound truth, doesn't it? The final, greatest victory for love isn't won against some external enemy out there. It's won inside ourselves, in the battle against our own jealousy.
Which leads us to the source's ultimate conclusion. It's the idea that without this higher form of love, a love that can forgive and overcome jealousy, then all of our actions, all our words, all our accomplishments are in the end meaningless. They're ultimately nothing.
And so we're left with that question. If love is the fundamental problem set of life, then all of these stages, the hunger, the complications, the need for forgiveness, they are the questions on our own personal test. The only real question left is, how will you solve yours?